This year is sponsored for the Refuah Shlema of David Arya ben Chava. Be'ever Refuah Shlema. L'nishmas David Moiri Menachem ben Akiva l'Refuas Aviva Bas Dvorah. Okay, welcome everybody to the Yom Iyun Yom Ha'atzmaut. I always refrained from speaking about issues that have to do with Yom Ha'atzmaut, but thanks to Rav Jacobowitz, who spoke about it last year, and he opened up the subject very nicely. I took some, gave me some guts to speak about an issue that is not really Yom Ha'atzmaut, but it has to do with, not to do with the state of Israel, but to do with the state in general. In other words, interesting halachic question that came to mind a few years ago upon, it was an interesting political event. A guy came to me in Kollel and he told me that there's a Shomer Shabbos Orthodox Jew in some large country out there. You'll have to guess, name and address withheld, and he's very close to the one who used to be the president in that country, and he drove on Shabbos, or he was taken by Goyes, who was taken by Nakum, and driven on Shabbos to a very important political event. You can guess if you want. And then I read in the news, one news site that my filter allowed me to see, that person also flew on Shabbos, took a flight on Shabbos with his wife. They're both Jewish. So the person told me that he heard that there's a halacha, the person who is the Korv Lamalchus, the person who's close to the king, to translate that literally, a person who is a Jew, the court's Jew, the one who is close to the king, is allowed to be over Kol Yisurim Shabbat Torah. So I'm an Orthodox guy, in case you haven't noticed, from Tel Aviv, but Orthodox. Rav Jacobowitz is also from Tel Aviv, by the way. You have 2 Tel Avivians out of 3 speakers today. It's dangerous. And even dangerous. Detroiters. Okay, all right. And so my jaw dropped to the floor, my eyebrows shot to the ceiling. Korv L'Malchus can do anything he wants, any Yisurim Shabbat Torah, even marry a goita. What's interesting? So I looked into it. So I started looking into it nice and slow. And today I will try and share with you the results of my research of the past few days and see what we can do. Is it or isn't it allowed for a Jew that is close to the king or to the president or to the whoever, whatever king close to the Jew close to the king means? That's another question. Is he allowed to actually jump into a car and in order to, do something, convince the king, be in touch with the king? Is he allowed to mechabed the king? Is he allowed to just jump into a car, drive, or midrabanan, be driven by an akum? Is that really allowed? Let's keep our minds open, maybe. Let's see. So, questions are more than welcome we're anyhow behind time. Sorry. Okay. Same thing with England. England is a very nice place. I've been there many, many times. Ishteke Gufay. I'm also English. With that logic. Okay, great. So, there is a Gemara in Bava Kama. Daf Pei Gimel Omud Aleph. And the Gemara is similar to another Gemara in Yerushalmi. I will actually quote the Yerushalmi because that's a very good, opening line, very nice and clear. The Yerushalmi, with the Zohar, Beis says, Shlosha Dvar Mitiru LeBeis Rebbe. Beis Rebbe, the house of Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda Anossi, sometimes they call him in English Rabbi Yehuda the Prince. He was Korv Lamalchus. Sometimes they refer to as Beis Rebbe, Beis Rabban Gamliel. They're all the same, royal Jewish dynasty, and they were close to the Roman emperors of that time. So there were 3 things that Chazal permitted to Beis Rebbe. To drive a car. Sheyu roin b'mara, they're allowed to look in the mirror. Well, because they're close to the king. B'shu mesaprin komi, they're allowed to shave their hair in a way that's komi. It doesn't mean comical. Komi is the way that priests, also in the medieval times, they were used to that kind of. They used to shave their hair that way. Rashi describes it many, many times. Komi is bloiris. Blorit in modern Hebrew actually means what I don't have is the hair over here. But blorit in halacha means the other way around. According to Rashi, at least, it means they would shave their head over here and they would leave hair behind. They would have like a ponytail or like long hair behind, and the front was shaven. That was something both religious and very fashionable. If you wore komi, you're a very cool guy, and you were also religious at the same time, that would be great. But Tisforis komi was not allowed halachically. But Beis Rabban Gamliel, they're allowed to cut their hair in a commie style. We're going to explain each and every item here, why it should be forbidden and why it was permitted for them, don't worry. And the third thing that was allowed to them was Shilamdu b'neim Yevonis. They're allowed to teach their children Greek. You're not allowed to study Greek. But if you are from Beis Rabbi, Chachamim gave you that leeway, special permission to study the forbidden language Greek. All Emir Hashem will be explained. I don't see driving the car here. Questions are more than welcome at 11:15. Those who listen to Mashiach on a daily basis are familiar with my North Korean tendency. I just don't have much time. I'm sorry. No, I'm not trying to. It's a day of democracy today. I'm aware of it. We celebrate democracy, maybe, whatever, but possibly. But I'll be more than happy to be questions and whatever. Tomatoes are more than welcome. The rotten ones at 12. Okay, then everything can be asked. For now, thank you. I appreciate your listening ears. So there are three things that are allowed people who are, and it concludes, Shayus cooking la malchus. The reason why they're allowed to break those terrible sins, to look in the mirror and to cut their hair in that goyish style haircut and to study Greek is because there's cooking la malchus. Cooking la malchus, zakuk means connected or necessary. They were connected to the king, and we needed their connection to the king, and that's why it's allowed. But before we analyze each one of those three items and see if there's room to extrapolate from there to driving your car, then let's first realize, why should it be allowed for a Jew to do any kind of avera in order to be close to the king? Why is that allowed? What do you gain from that? I saw 4 reasons. It's just the akdama. As we go along, you'll detect those 4 reasons, different opinions, and different kulas. First reason is, you'll be surprised, some Jews actually in the times of the Gemara, until recent history, maybe even today, I don't know, in the times of the Gemara, it's in Me'ila Yudzayin, not Megillah, Me'ila Daf Yudzayin. There's a story about Rav Reuven of Tolmus ben Reuven. He actually disguised as a goy. Some Jews actually dress up like goyim, so you're allowed to look like a goy because you're going to fool them. They'll think that your name is not Chaim Moshe and Kalevsky. They think your name is Tim McKenzie. And there's a very interesting story about of Tulmus. There was a time when one of the many times when the Romans had 3 gzeras, not to do bris milah, not to keep Shabbos, and to be boil nida. And he, again, posing as a guy, told them that it's better for us Romans to, have the Jews keep Shabbos, they'll be poor. Make them do bris milah because they'll be weak. And have them separate from the wives 2 weeks because then they won't have children. And the goyim listened, but at the end he was discovered. So it didn't help. They needed Rabbi Shimon Gamliel at the end of Shimon Bar Yochai. But there are other cases. There's a case in Tainis Chav Bes, I think. Also a Jew that would walk around the street without tzitzis. Without tzitzis and with black shoes. Black shoes then were not Haredi. Black shoes was dafka goyish. He would wear the fancy Gucci. Tzitzis without tzitzis, and he would walk also to, posing as a Roman to listen to the goyim have to say. That's one Korv Lamalchus, and a non-official one, unofficial one. Second reason is the goyim, the goyish king Halzach, that is very choshuv and is a very choshuv guy, and the melech would only relate to people who dress the part. And they know Chochmah, they know to speak Greek nicely. Only such people would be welcome to the king's court. Somebody wearing, coming from Koil with scraggly beard and, old hat and jacket, how can you enter the White House like that? You don't look mechubed enough for the king. Third reason, which we'll see in the Rambam, the opposite. The Jew, may be very proud to wear his Bekitche and Streimel and Shabbos in Shul in the Shtivel, but the Jew doesn't feel comfortable sitting amongst the goyim unless he looks very sharp. So the Jew has to feel comfortable. That's the third reason. The fourth reason, that's more maybe Yom Ha'atzmaut style. Fourth reason is there was a time when David HaMelech employed, in Kiddushin and Vav and Aleph, David HaMelech would employ 400 Bnei Yefas Toyer. They were Jews of dubious yichus because the mother is from Yefas Toyer, a Gioris that doesn't really want to be Jewish kind of thing. And they would wear bloiris, they would have the hair looking like goyim, and they would be the first ones at war to intimidate the goyim. Somehow, we'll see why, when the Jew looks like a goy, and he's actually, waging war against the other goyim, leading the Jews behind him, that intimidates the goyim. So it's either we want to dress like goyim to look like a goy and, sneak in and spy. Either the melech would only be mekarev Jews that are normal in his eyes, nicely dressed and, well-spoken, or the Jew only feels comfortable when he sits at the court, dressed like a goy and discussing Homer and Plato with them, or the fourth reason, to scare them off. Okay, that's just the general overview for now. I made a bracha before. Okay. So let's start. Why are you allowed to look at the mirror if you're close to the king? So first of all, why shouldn't you look in the mirror? What's wrong with looking in the mirror, So basically, Tosh says, Ahavat Shalom daf Chavtes Amud Aleph, Chavtes is cut. So now we all remember that the sugya of taking a haircut from a goy, which is not simple at all, is Ahavat Shalom cut, Chavtes. You can know the entire shas like that, by the way, with the simonim. Yeah. So Ahavat Shalom Chavtes cut. Yeah, there's an issue of taking a haircut by a person who's I don't say goy, an Ahavat Shalom, whatever. Yeah, he has a knife, and if it's not in the middle of the street, it's some dark alley somewhere, and he doesn't like you so much, and he has that, scissors that are very strong, don't be with him, in that situation, unless you look in the mirror. If you look in the mirror, says the Gemara, then only choshev people, only VIP kind of guys, they look at the mirror, then he'll think that you're choshev and he won't kill you. Because you are choshev, because there will be big news, and they'll chase him for that. Okay. So what's the problem? Mashma. Tosfos goes into length into the whole inyan. Tosfos brings down the Yerushalmi that the Beis Rebbe were allowed to look in the mirror. Mashma, that is to say that other people are not allowed to look in the mirror. It's a special dispensation, special leniency just for the choshev people of the king. They can look, in the mirror. Why is that? First of all, why? And secondly, Tosfos asks a question. Shabbos Kuf Mem Tes Amud Aleph, it says that on Shabbos you're not allowed to look in the mirror that has sharp ends, because you look at the same time you're gonna cut your hair without even realizing the mirror is double purpose. You look, and at the end, that's a very nice very nice startup. A mirror that also cuts your hair at the same time. You look at the mirror, you may cut your hair on Shabbos. Says Tosfos, it's in Daf Kuf Mem Tes. Why Kuf Mem Tes? Because kemet is a wrinkle. So looking in the mirror, you look at your wrinkles. When you get to my edge, this is a no Shabbos Kuf Mem Tes. Okay, let's leave that on. I'll stop with it. I'll stop. I'll behave myself from now on. So now, Frek Tosfos, is it or isn't it allowed? You see that on Shabbos you can't look in the mirror, otherwise you can. Says Tosfos, different answers. Says Tosfos, this entire issue of not looking in the mirror is because of lo yilbash. It applies to men only. So maybe the Gemara in Shabbos is about women. Only men are not allowed to look in the mirror. Why? Because it's lo yilbash. Lo yilbash. A man should not dress like a woman, should not behave like a woman, and vice versa. A woman should not carry a gun, and a man should not look in the mirror because that's a feminine thing to do. Okay, I'd like to read Tosfos inside, and Tosfos concludes as follows. It says Tosfos, this is why. So now, says Tosfos that Beis Rebbe, why is it okay for them? Tosfos does not yet even relate to that, but before that, Tosfos says, it's only also en osur ke'im hisnois. It's a very flexible Isser Torah. In other words, if you look in the mirror because you want to beautify yourself, and you happen to be a male, and you just want to look better and spiffy and and cool and nice and fashionable, into a modeling career, that is also mishum lo yilbash. Aval istaper v'legalech v'liros b'mar shelo yichabel be'atzmoi. You want to look in the mirror because you're cutting yourself. You don't want to harm yourself. You look in the mirror for technical reasons. Or he says, "Shaloi oy mishum meichush einayim." I saw them before Shim and the Yerushalmi. Back then, maybe today too, they believed that if you look in the mirror, it's healthy for your eyes. So if it's for medical reasons, or if it's for technical reasons, not to harm myself as I shave my beard, as I trim my beard, then you're allowed to look in the mirror. So it's a kind of flexible issur. And Tosfos concludes here, and he says, "Uboichen libois tu yodea." Boichen libois sounds like Yom Kippur. Yeah, Hashem that inspects your heart, He knows why you're looking in the mirror. If you're looking in the mirror just in order to beautify yourself, I'm sorry, and look whatever in a way that's feminine for beautification only, that is not allowed. Otherwise, it is. So now let's see. So what about Beis Rebbe? So Beis Rebbe are. Why do they need a special heter? Because Beis Rebbe did it not to beautify themselves. Why did they do it? They did it because they have to look mechubed, and that I saw in the Meforshim and the Yerushalmi. They all say the same. People who go to the king should look in the mirror. You come to Kollel. Talmid Chacham always has to be mechubed looking. Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yudalad Amud Aleph. That is because Talmid Chacham has to look mechubad. Fine, nice, not like a kid. Kuf Yudalad kid. Yeah. So, but that is only stuff. You look normal, but to look special, nice and special, really, really sharp, really the part. That you have to look in the mirror before you go to the king's court. But stop. Why do you need this special heter? According to Tosfos, that was never forbidden. If my motives are right, then I don't need the special heter from Chazal. I think that's what Tosfos said. That's my own understanding. Lev boichen libas yodea. Beis Rebbe, they didn't look in the mirror for technical reasons to make sure they're not harming themselves or for health reasons. They wanted to look beautiful, but for the right reason. So it's more of a dakisdike point. It's more of a nuance, right? I think that's the point. Boichen libos, yeah? In other words, only Hashem knows that a guy from Beis Rebbe would trust them to be choshev, talmidei chachamim, with the right reasons. They do beautify themselves, but not in order to look cool and be, the next, poster man. But the idea is in order to go to the king. Yeah, because it's a borderline Isser, we say we rely on the Beis Rebbe. They probably look in the mirror for the right reason. Okay, that's Tosfos. The Ran over there, the Ran on the Rif, says a different answer. And by the way, Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Tosfos, that a man can look in the mirror if it's for a technical thing and not for beautification. The Ran, for those of us who want to look good news now. The Ran on the Rif, not in the Chidushim, the Ran says in the Avodah Zarah, depends on Minhag HaMakom, says the Ran, and he outright says it about Beis Rebbe. He says that that Isser, now looking in the mirror, is only in a place where only women look in the mirror. So then you're a man, you behave clearly like a woman, it's like wearing a dress. Yeah, cross-dressing, clearly. So that you're not allowed to do because you behave like a woman. But if there's a place where everybody looks at the mirror, he spoke the Rav about equality. Everyone looks in the mirror, men and women alike. It's normal for every normal straight man to look in the mirror. Then bevakasha. Then you can also look in the mirror because it's just not called Ma'aseh Isha. It's not called Lo Yilbash. Frek the Ran himself. So why did Beis Rebbe need a special heter, right? If Beis Rebbe lived in Roman culture, everyone looked in the mirror. Why do Beis Rebbe need a special heter? It's allowed anyways. Why do Chazal have to give them that special, tick in the box? Says the Ran, because the Chaverim, people who are like Talmidei Chachamim, Chaverim, people more Yerei Shamayim, they don't look in the mirror. Even in a place where, both genders look in the mirror, the Chaverim, the more Chosheva, the Charedisha ones, they don't look in the mirror, and therefore Beis Rebbe, obviously being, the top of the cream of the cake, the cream of the crop of the frumkeit, so they needed, although they're Chaverim, the special heter. So let's conclude. So heter number one, every time I'll go back and forth into the car. Yeah, we have to look at, besides these three, there are other heterim, the Rabbanan. Yeah, we have to always go back into the car and see, can I drive the car on Shabbos or be driven by a goy on Shabbos before Mekur of Lamalchus? So far, bad news. Because what do we see here? We see that there's an Isser which is a flexible Isser according to Tosfos, right? It's mutter to look in the mirror for the right reason. Beis Rebbe did it for the right reason. According to the Ran Bichlal, it's only a noyhag of Talmidei Chachamim, and Beis Rebbe, being Talmidei Chachamim, were allowed that. To be driven by a goy on Shabbos, or on a plane, that obviously has nothing to do with that. That's a clear gzera. That is not a flexible gzera. It doesn't depend on why you do it. There's no boichen libos yada why I drive on Shabbos. We had a neighbor in Tel Aviv, she said, we would see her coming into her car on Shabbos, and she would say, sat lasot mitzvah. Nice. So my father didn't go into discussion with her about mitzvah bar lavera. We nodded and said Shabbat Shalom. She's going to the car to do a mitzvah to visit her mother. It doesn't make a difference, yeah? Yeah, lamaisa, to be driven on Shabbos by a goy or by your husband is also. Yeah, there's no, it's not as flexible as looking in the mirror where you have to know why, what, and who. That's number one. Number two, chochmas yevonis. So they allowed Beis Rebbe to study Greek. Doesn't say Greek. It says Chochmas Yevonis, Greek wisdom. What does that mean? So there's the famous Gemara back to Babakama Pei Gimel Omud Aleph at the end of Perek Merubah. I'm not going to read the entire thing. There was a very famous story about the two brothers from Beis Chashmonoi. They were fighting with each other. There was a civil war. And there were people inside Yerushalayim, people outside Yerushalayim. The Romans were trying to, with the help of one of the brothers, they were trying to, conquer Yerushalayim, to come in. And every day the people inside Yerushalayim would get a keves. The people from the outside normally would get the people inside Yerushalayim, through the wall. They would get them a keves. For the Tommy, they would get them a sheep. And this is how the Avodas Beis HaMikdash continued. And then there was one smarty pants. There was one zoken echad. There was an old man, a Jew, that was knowledgeable in Greek culture, Greek chokhmah. Omar lehem, he told the Greek people, he told them, as long as those Jews are actually worshipping in Beis HaMikdash, you can't conquer them, you won't manage with them. And then what did he say? Bring them a chazir instead. And they brought them chazir instead of the keves. And then it's kind he put his hands in the stuck his claws in the choima, in the wall, and the land shook 500 persos because Hashem was so angry. And then they made a gzera. Then Chazal made a special gzera, needless to say, with the Rabbanon, not to study Greek. What kind of Greek? Chochmas Yevonis. Chochmas Yevonis, that is to say, says Rashi, Chochmas Yevonis, bnei Loshen, bnei Palotin akrovin l'malchus masaprin bo. High level Greek that only royal people speak, not the Amcha, not the regular people, not the street cleaners of Athens, but only the Choshuvas. Such language you're not allowed to study, in light of that tragic, the tragedy that happened. What does the one have to do with the other? Well, the Girsa in a different Gemara. Well, why not? What does speaking Greek have to do with anything? Well, the Girsa in other Gemaras, that's just the end of Soita. I don't do Daf Yomi, but those who do, soon you'll get there. Daf Memtes in Soita, it says that he spoke to them in Greek. In other words, that old man did not want other Jews to understand him. He spoke to them in their own, high-level Greek. And that's why, don't study that language. You see that people who study that language, they can communicate with the Malchus not the way we want. That's a clear D'Rabbanon only, right? And such an Issa D'Rabbanon that was just imposed of not speaking a language, that is allowed for Beis Rebbe. Beis Rebbe would trust them to use a language for the right reason, and that's why it's allowed. Okay, obviously nothing to do with entering a car. We all understand, even if you are extremely fanatic against Limudei Chol, nobody would compare studying a language to driving a car on Shabbos. That's not even that's a non-starter, And soon we'll get into a deeper point here. So Chazal, who initiated that very specific gzera not to study Greek, they said Beis Rebbe, we trust them, they're okay with the language. According to the Meiri, though, it's a whole different story. According to the Meiri, I'm reading that inside too. Chochmas Yevonis is a whole different ball game, and here we're entering hot water. Here we are getting a little bit into trouble. Says the Meiri, what's Loshen Yevoni? Says the Meiri, it's a beautiful language, so why aren't you allowed the Chochma Shelohim? Says the Meiri, I have no problem with people studying Greek, Chinese, Spanish, Swahili. You can study it all. However, but Chochma Yevonis, the Chochma of the Greek philosophers, also Lalomdo, you're not allowed to study it. Bechlal. Mipnei shemosheches liba shel Adam. It attracts the human's mind, the human being's mind. V'oreses harben mipinai sadas. And it mamish destroys a lot of the foundations of our religion. Basically, you read all those, whatever, writings by Homer, by Aristotle, by whoever they were, those Greek philosophers, eventually, lo aleinu, off the derech. So, there's actually an Isser Doraisa. I'm adding from the Mishnah at the beginning of Chelek. The Mishnah at the beginning of Perek Chelek says, "Hakoyer b'sforim chitzoinim." Somebody who studies sforim chitzoinim, elu chelek lo olam haba. Elu chelek lo olam haba. That is to say, what's sforim chitzoinim? It could be whatever, not tznius things, but sforim chitzoinim, according to many, is Sifrei Sha'ar Apikorsim. The Tiferes Yisrael says, if you read Apikorsis, you read Divrei Kfira, there's an Isser D'Orais of Al Tifnu El Ho'ililim. Don't let your heart wander, go astray after foreign chokhmas. That is understandable. We all have Yetzer Hara for Kfira because it allows us to do whatever we want. That's the whole idea of atheism. Just do whatever you want and feel good about it. We all have that Yetzer Hara inside of us, so stay away from that. Okay, so that is a real Isser. That's a real biggie. Yeah, that's a clear Isser even Doraisa that can get the person off, and yet Chachamim did allow it for Beis Rebbe. Yeah, so maybe also driving the car is allowed. Because, we see a serious Isser Doraisa, which is shkafically serious, and yet the Mekur Malchus is allowed to study the Chochmas Yevonis. So maybe you can also get into the, to that ceremony on Shabbos. Let's continue the Meiri. Says the Meiri, why did the Krovil Malchus Bechlal need to study Greek philosophy? What's the idea? How does that help them? He's going to philosophize with the king. He just wants the king to, allow the Hasidic kids in New York study Kodesh. What is that with Greek philosophy? Says the Meiri, Krov Malchus Shalohem, Mitzad Shem Tzrichim Belekam Dvorim Betachsisem Malchayim. In other words, they need to know the Greek philosophy, to know the Tachsisim, to know the tricks of the Goyim. Know your enemy. You have to know the king's, mindset. So because the kings themselves back then, politicians I guess were of higher level, the Roman Caesars, whatever, they would also like that philosophy. In other words, a king would only allow a Jew or any other person who's knowledgeable enough. Kitzer, you have to have PhD to be Korv Lamalchus. If you have your PhD, at least an MA in Greek philosophy, you're a guy, you are a normal Haredi. Oh, wow, you can actually talk about, you really know that the world is round. Wow, I wish all the Haredim were like you. Basically, so then that's the idea. The Melech sees that this is a normal guy you can talk to, he's knowledgeable, he's, is enlightened. That's why they're allowed to study that Chochmah still. So, my question still stands. So maybe you can also jump into the car, because the king would be very upset if you don't come to his coronation. Continues the Meiri to something very, very interesting. Meiri continues, and also the Tiferes Yisrael says the same. Ve'ata chachomim ashleimim, talmidei chachomim, they are not close to the king. There's another group of people who are allowed to study Chochmas Yevonis. Who are they? These are people, talmidei chachomim, okay, shekvarmilu kreisam boso v'yayin. They're already mamala kreisam. They filled their stomach with basar and yain, which means with meat and wine, which means that Torah v'Talmud v'Sodos mitzvaseha, people who are very, very accomplished in knowledge of Torah, and the same lotion is used about Kabbalah, about going to the Pardes. People can only go into the depth of Kabbalah and Torah Sanistal when they're very knowledgeable in other areas of Torah. Who are the real kings? Mekur of Lamalchus is a Talmid Chacham, is close to Hashem. He is also allowed to study that Chochmas Yevonis. Wow, why is that? In other words, they're allowed to study whatever they want in order to be able to work in Kiruv. Somebody comes to them and says, who told you there's God, and who told you this, and who told you that? They have to know to answer. They have to know about evolution, to outsmart, to dispel it. They have to know to play the game, because those Talmidei Chachomim are people asking the questions online. And the Tiferes Yisrael says, it goes even further, and he says, it's also because of Altivin Alilim, but he says that, Bifrat Bebeis HaKiseh, in the basic, he said, it's good for Talmid Chacham to read those Kfir books. Why? I'm sorry, ask your local Orthodox rabbi, before you do that, because you have to know how to answer, and one important line from the Tiferes Yisrael, a person who's holding the very high level of Emunah and Torah, such a person is no chashash, because he's not going to go off the derech, he's the other way, he's getting people on the derech. That changes everything. So as opposed to driving the car on Shabbos, when you talk about learning Chochmas Chitzonius, as much as that sounds terrible, again, I use the same term again, that's a term that I now invented here, flexible Isser. It's an Isser that can be very chomer. You see you're 15 years old struggling with Emunah, and if he or she, they read, or nobody reads today, if you see them going to the website of Kfira, if they listen to you, you tell them, hey, filter that out, blackmail that one, blacklist this one, So that's a different story. But if a person is very knowledgeable, then what? he's allowed to read those Sefer Kfira. I just want to mention to you, when it comes to Shabbos, it's different. We all know the Gemara in Shabbos Daf, I think Yud Beis Amud Beis. It says Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, what did he do? He said, I'm going to read the Sefer, learn Torah by the light of the candle, and I will not tilt the candle. And he did tilt it. You see, Talmidei Chachamim don't have special dispensation. We don't believe that the guru can do whatever he wants, right? In other words, so only this Isser particularly is mutar for these and those people, because the Isser is, to begin with, a flexible Isser. I'm going to prove the point, by the way, later, but so far I'm just taking you through so far, sadly so, I would not recommend to jump into the car, even if you are very Mekurav to the most choshev person of the most choshev country. Third, okay, Tisporet Komi, the funny haircut of the Goyim. So that is a clear Isser. This week's Parsha. Oh, all of a sudden I spoke, I read the Parsha yesterday and I said, bingo. Baruch Hashem is with me. They say if you learn Chumash and if what you happen to learn in your regular study coincides with the Parsha, it's a good siman mishamayim. That's what they told us in school at least. So now, the Tisporet Komi, that haircut is an Isur D'Oraisa. Why? Because it says in this week's Parsha, "B'chukosein lo telechu, b'chukosein lo telechu, shelo yidam elahen." Don't look like a goy. Don't wear goyish clothes. Definitely not a goyish haircut that probably has its sources in the Avodah Zarah. And here, Beis Rebbe, or maybe any Jew that's in the French Parliament or in the British Parliament, maybe he's not allowed to. Maybe cut his hair like that to do a goyish haircut. Yeah, maybe that's allowed. So maybe also jumping into the car is okay. Yeah, that's a serious Isser. So, the Rambam, before the Rambam, Tosfos here, in Bava Kama Pi Gimel, and Rabbi Shaya also in the Shita Mekubetzes, they say as follows. Tosfos says one line. Mitchila legozru al kovim lemalchus. Although I just told you it's D'Oraisa, so it seems, Tosfos says, no, lo gozru mitchila. When Chachamim, right at the start, made the Gezerah not to cut your hair Komi style, they right at the beginning, before they even came out with the Gezerah, they excluded the Krovim Malchus. That's a very interesting Yesod, which appears later in the Achronim. Some Gezeras the Rabbanon, the reasons we'll see later. But the reason, not the reason, the mechanism, the way it functions is, when Chazal sat down and decided, lahavdil, like the Beis Yaakov, Takanon, this haircut is osur, these shoes are osur. Chachamim, lahavdil, decided this haircut out of the Takanon. Can't have that haircut if you're Jewish. At the very same time, they never even started applying that Gzera on the Mekur V'Lamalchus. I'm not saying reasons, I'm just saying how it works. Driving on Shabbos, or being driven by a guy, is not in that list. When Chazal said that Amir Lakum is osur, so Amir Lakum, to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, applies to Talmidei Chachamim, applies to Mekur V'Malchus as well. Because Tosfos is telling you only things that to begin with never started to apply to Mekur V'Malchus, they are on that list. We're going to explain deeper now, and I'm going to read you the Rambam from my cut and paste Rambam. Says the Rambam, Yilchas Avodas Kochavim, as follows. Rambam actually expands and extends that heter. Yisrael She'akov L'Malchus, I don't have to translate again. He has to sit there in the oval thing, in the shmovel, wherever he has to sit. He feels uncomfortable. Oops, in Kollel, everyone's with a white shirt. Here I'm the only one. No, actually there are people also. I'm the only guy here with this funny black suit, with a bekishe, with a hat. It feels very funny. He doesn't have the self-confidence to talk to the king. He looks like a clown from the shtetl. Maybe he should be proud of his Jewish levush. Yeah, I am. But, in that context, in that society, he's, squirming in his chair while everybody else is, wow, with their amazingly fashionable Komi haircut. Wow. And all these fancy red robes that they used to wear. So he feels like an idiot, like a clown. He can't really function that way. So, continues the Rambam, Arez mutar lilbush b'malbushayin. Not only the Komi, he can actually dress like a guy. Dress like a guy, he can shave like a guy. What that shave means, we'll see later. Does he really mean shave like with a razor? That will be discussed. And Shulchan Aruch Kufa and Chesbes also says the same thing. Shulchan Aruch Paskins Yid. In Seif Aleph, Shulchan Aruch says that dressing like a guy doesn't mean anything that the guy wears. It means clothes that are lot tsanua, I don't know, lot tsanua, like they're red and too fleshy and too, eye-catching for both men and women, it's too much for a Jew. Or maybe it has its sources in Avodah Zarah, they wear something funny in an illogical way, which means it's religious. So these things are also, and if you go and you sit by king and you're a king's Jew, then you're allowed to do all that. So then, Frek the Kesef Mishneh, wait a minute. If this is B'chukaseyim, and the Rambam says people are loike, if I'm not Mekorv L'Malchus, and I say, I just want to be more open-minded, I want to wear this, very goisha, interesting, red robe and dress with that komi, I just like it. So, Beis Din would give me Malchus. So how come something that's an Isser, D'oraisa? B'chukaseyim Lo Telechu, how come the people of the, of the king's office, the king's court, how can they do that? How can you allow them Isser D'oraisa, says the Kesef Mishneh. I won't say the car word again, I think you're tired of that, so I'll leave that alone for now. Says the Kesef Mishneh two answers. Answer number one, says the Kesef Mishneh, they did it only for Hatzolah of the Jews. Yeah, he says, Lahatzil es b'nei Yisrael. When you mamish have to save the Jewish nation, Esther had relations with a guy. Yeah, you save Klal Yisrael, even if it's not mamish pikuach nefesh, but the guy, for example, I'm jumping now to another area, the guy who didn't wear tzitzis, or Avtolmus ben Reuven, they wanted to save the Jews spiritually. If you know that the king is about mamish to start a decree against the Jews, and they want to teach all the Hasidic kids in New York about how amazing is Mishkav Zachor and evolution and all that, it's a sakona ruchnis. So if right now, this is the very last, I don't know American politics work, by the way, if it is very, the liberal people are very liberal when they want to. But, if let's say they decide, that's it, we're having the very final meeting about the Hasidic schools, the Hasidic schools, and if you don't come now, so maybe the Jews are allowed to jump into the car, right? I don't know, maybe, because Lamaise it says Shulchan Aruch, Shinvov, at the end of Shinvov, thank you for my colleague Moshe David Cohen reminding me of the place, it says, if a person is about to be Nishbel Anochrim, or today would be, somebody's going to influence him clearly to go off the derech, you're allowed to drive a car that is halacha shir, but I'm saying, the halacha says you're allowed to even Safik Mechal Shabbos, even Mechal Shabbos, to save him, to save his soul. So that's a different story. That's mamish a sakana. So if it's a mamish sakana ruchnis, an immediate sakana ruchnis or gashmi to the people, then you're allowed to break even in this Torah. That's answer number one. We're not talking here about so that's already I don't think that just on a regular basis to start driving and flying to wherever is what's included here. I don't have that feeling. We're talking about an immediate, clear, not even pikuach nefesh, but there'll be very sour feelings towards the Jews, then it is possibly allowed. That's the first answer. The second answer endorses what we said when I called it a flexible Isur. And here the Kesef Mishnah, this is the Kesef Mishnah, which is the Shulchan Aruch. Kesef Mishnah says as follows: the Torah, when the Torah says B'chukasem lo telechu, B'chukasem lo telechu is a combination of Isur D'oraisa and Isur D'Rabbanan. To have the haircut like a goy, and to dress like a goy, and to talk like a goy, and to behave like a goy, Greek, Shmik, all these things, yes, it's an Isur Torah. However, what do you mean the flexible Isur? Says the Kesef Mishneh, Masra Hadavar L'Chachamim. And he says, sounds like modern Hebrew, but it's Kesef Mishneh. Atar lo pirta davar, that's what he says. The Torah is not mefaret, the Torah don't get into details. The Torah said, don't behave like a goy. What does it mean? Goyim do that? This is what Tim McKenzie does. Are you going to stone me now because I'm drinking like a guy? Even in English, don't show it to my Bnei Brakish friends. So what's the story? Where's the limit? Up to Chazal. Chazal had Midoraisa. Chazal are the ones to decide what's in and what's out of B'chukasem lo telechu. So that's not like a regular Isur Torah or even in Isur D'Rabbanan that's clear cut. It's a very non-clear cut Isur. The same Chazal that decided that Komi, and that's why it's very good with Tosfos. Tosfos says when Chazal decided, now everything ties in. It's not that Chazal just made up Komi because they want to make everyone's life a misery because we all want to have Komi and they don't. Chazal decided we are now bringing in Hisporis Komi into the club into the definition of the B'chukasem lo telechu, and at the same time we decide the people Mekorv Malchus, for them it doesn't apply. It's a flexible Isur. And that, Lemaisa, I would summarize now, we got to more or less halfway through the shir. The common denominator between, I'll try and do the second half quicker. The common denominator, if you notice, let's be general but clear. The common denominator between these three isurim are: you're allowed to look good, you're allowed to look as good as a goy, and you're allowed to what? You're allowed to even talk like a goy and, be educated like a goy, because you have to feel comfortable, the king comfortable with you. But these isurim are all just either a rather weak Darabanan of Greek, studying Greek, or it's flexible isurim. All these three isurim, but don't behave like a woman. Well, a woman and man 2023 is way, way different to 100 years ago or even 20 years ago, right? It's all different. They say today, people can, I don't know, the halachic lemaisa. I've heard, famous Gemara in Brachos, I think it's in Brachos, the Talmid Chacham should not go with perfume to the shul, because they'll think he's a Mishkav Zachor. Today they say it's normal. Very, very, very normal man, they wear perfume, so it's fine. I'm saying, these things are flexible. Looking in the mirror, everyone looks in the mirror, can look in the mirror too, unless it's Talmid Chacham. Same thing. In other words, all these isurim are flexible. And therefore Chazal said, in our flexibility, we mix and match, we fix it, and we say, not from Korv Malchus, because they have a good reason, they're Matzil Klal Yisrael. Very nice. I'm actually going to be a bit quicker now. However, here comes trouble. Because there is a Gemara in Yerushalmi in Kiddushin, but it's also brought down in Rashi also in Kiddushin, in the last parak of Kiddushin, about Nehemiah, the Novi. Nehemiah was Ezra's friend, very religious Jew. And Nehemiah, his job was to be the connoisseur, the wine, the Sar HaMashkim of the Melech. And he would serve the wine to the Goyish king there, in Bavel, and he would have, part of his job was to taste the Goyish wine, the Stam Yeina, in order to make sure that the wine is not, poisoned. That's a nice job. Well, Baruch Hashem, he wasn't, I guess. Yeah, lucky him. But how could he work in such a job? I would say Pikuach Nefesh. I don't know if the king left him much choice. But it sounds like, the Gemara does say, there was called, Nehemiah's nickname, Nehemiah's alias was Hatar Shata. Why Hatar Shata? Hatir Shtia. Chazal allowed him to drink the Goyish drink because of the Korv Malchus. Here falls my entire tower that I built. Not just me, the Kesef Mishnah falls apart because to drink Yain Nesach is outright osur, right? Yain Nesach, a wine touched by goy, moved by a goy, whatever. We're not talking about the Vedazoro, which is the Oraisa. Yeah, the Yain Nesach itself is what? Is osur completely. Talmid Chachami, men, women, it's not one of these, general behavioral isurim. So, and yet it's allowed, so Mekorv Malchus, the man with the maskana is you're allowed to drive the car on Shabbos. You wish. No. I'm not giving in so quickly. So, the emesis, and that is, I'll make it quicker. Pachad Yitzchak, not Rebbe and David's father, not the Pachad Yitzchak you think of, the Pachad Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak Lampronti. There he's a earlier Achron. Rav Yitzchak Lampronti in the Tshuva, although the Tshuva is signed by someone else, but the Sefer is Pachad, I don't know, it's maybe two Rabbanim together. In any event, the Pachad Yitzchak does say that he brings down those Gemaras and the Einesach business. The Pachad Yitzchak was asked, it's Shalosh Teshuvos, and he was asked if a Jew that is in the shloishim, within the shloishim of his father, is an ovel, and looks like an ovel, it looks like my tzolis, the beard like that and the hair like that, and he has to go to the king because he is a lobbyist for the Jews. Is he allowed to shave and cut his hair in order to look nice in front of the melech? The answer is, excuse the pun, to cut a long story short. He says yes, he's allowed to. It sounds from the Rebbe Yitzchak Lampronti that yes, he says, I'm quoting his very poetic language, Bal yir'enu ha'adon menuval. The Adon, the king, should not see menuval. Bizkanoi megudal. Yeah. Penchas v'sholem yichar alav apoy v'yastir panim mimenu. He's scared that the king will see him, all scraggly and all, messy and, very disorderly. And I guess the kings, they were not so tolerant, and the person couldn't say, it's part of my religious belief, and the amendment, religion, respect religion. It wasn't like that back then, and therefore the Jew is allowed to actually megalech, which by the way is the Rabbanon, the Pashtus, Avelus is generally the Rabbanon, it says maybe it's a bit from according to the Torah, but generally speaking it's viewed as the Rabbanon. I'm not going there now. So, Rabbi Yitzchak Lampronti does sound like, he says yes, he also believes that the story with the tzitzis was kipshutoi, a Jew wore arba kanfas without tzitzis. Yeah, you can be mevatel aseh, you can break the Rabbanons. He doesn't say you can break in Isra Torah mamish, by the way. Yeah, in order to what? To be nice to the king. Okay, so why? Look, don't talk to him about relativity. The Pachad Yitzchok, what do you mean? Wine. Yei Nesach is not relative. Yei Nesach is trade for everybody in every situation. Yeah, it's not like, if it's normal for men, normal for women, no normal for Greek. That's his shita. Okay, to the best of my knowledge, when you open a sefer, when you want to know what's halacha, what do? You ask the Rav. Okay, but you also have the chance to look up which sefer, Shulchan Aruch. You open Pachad Yitzchok when you want to know halacha l'maisa. I don't. Yeah. So, what does the Shulchan Aruch have to say about it? Let's research into the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef is koifer in this whole business. The Beis Yosef himself, quite at length, it's a very long siman there. The Beis Yosef, in the halachos of Yei Nesach, says that by the time of Nehemiah, either there was no gzera b'chlal on Yei Nesach. In other words, in the times of Pinchas, yes, Pinchas, the original one, the one who killed Zimri and Cosby, yeah, he's the one who started the gzera of Yei Nesach. Yeah, so it says in Yerushalmi. Oh, so by the times of Nehemiah, it's been a very old established gezerah. That's not so simple. Because the Gemara in Yud Ches Dover, the first parak in Shabbos, in Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara says that Hillel v'Shammai, in that very famous incident, the Talmidim, they would kill them, whatever, they outvoted the Beis Hillel, and Shammai made a lot of gzeras, 18 gzeras. One of them was Yei Nesach Stam Yenam, because of B'nai Seim. You drink Goyish wine, you may marry Tim Mackenzie's daughter. So now, what's going on here? Who made the gzera? Was it Pinchas? Now, Nehemiah lived between the times of Pinchas, that's the Bible, and the times of Hillel v'Shammai. They were after him. So, what's the story of Nehemiah? Was it allowed, not allowed? Says the Beis Yosef that, first of all, it wasn't accepted. Pinchas tried to aser Stam Yenam, didn't work out. So, Meikar Din, Nehemiah could have drunk the wine. It wasn't aser. It wasn't aser. So, why do you need the heter? Very nice, lovely. Why do you need the heter? Very nice. I don't know according to the first answer. The Beis Yosef has two other answers. He says Daniel made the gzera not to drink it b'mesibas goyim, but home alone you can drink it. You should know, to drink alcoholic drink, halacha l'maisa, according to some opinions of Sfardim that I know, you can't drink together with goyim. If you go to a pub or mesiba of goyim, you can't drink any alcoholic drink, even gin, even whatever, whiskey. I'm not halacha shir, but I'm pretty sure about that. So at the beginning, Mashenkin to drink just with Jews or alone in the Kiddush club, yeah, that's okay to drink whiskey. That's a tangential thing. So at that time, the Gzer was partial. The Gzer was kilo developing. Or another pshat, Daniel only answered it for himself. Sorry, Pinchas and then Daniel reinstated it for himself. Oh, so could be Nehemiah was a choshev guy, like Daniel, like Pinchas. For themselves they answered it. Klal Yisrael said, leave me alone with frumkeit. Not, I like to drink goyish wine. The frumi ones, they would not drink. Very much like the Ran says about, very nice, about Beis Rebbe with a mirror. That's a different story. So according to the Beis Yosef, really the heter was, Nehemiah, whoa, you are drinking wine of the Melech, somebody like Nehemiah, the builder Beis HaMikdash and Avi from that now, he wouldn't drink Yei Nesach. The heter was, he's so choshuv, but to be choshuv in the eyes of the king, he can do it, yeah? But had it been a gzera across the board, then he wouldn't be allowed, according to Beis Yosef. Very, very nice. It's l'shitasai. Why? When you open Shulchan Aruch, which last time I checked was written by the Beis Yosef, which is also the Kesef Mishnah. You following? It's all the same person. He's peeping through all the holes in his sugya. And what does he say? When Shulchan Aruch talks about where we go, I didn't see the entire Shulchan Aruch, but from what I've seen, yeah, I haven't seen in Hilchos Shabbos, Amir L'Nochri Asur, Amir L'Nochri by Bekur L'Malchus is mutter. The Shulchan Aruch says there, at the second halacha of what? Of looking like a goy, not to have the haircut, not to wear red, not to this. There Shulchan Aruch says, Bekur L'Malchus mutter b'chol eila, b'chulam. What's b'chulam? Not every affair in the Torah. If that's what these people thought, then completely out. Yeah, he means all the above. All these things that he wrote in Sif Aleph, all the dress like a guy, talk like a guy, behave like a guy, have the haircut like a guy, all those are allowed. And before it says there in the Taz says in his Furash, basically what the Kesef Mishnah says, because these Yisurim are flexible. What do you mean look like a guy? Ask a Satmar Chosid what's look like a guy, and ask a person who's very just about Orthodox what's looking like a guy. They give different answers. It's a flexible, and they both may be right. Rav Moshe Feinstein is a whole tshuva about short jackets. Some people will tell you that this is Chukas Agam. I'm not laughing. The Jews came to America, and they said, some Jews said, you're not allowed to wear a kurzer ekel, and only a long one. Rav Moshe has a whole tshuva. Those flexible things, again, B'si Yosef seems to me that he argues on he was later anyways, on the Pachad Yitzchak, and says only things that to do with the looking like a goy, behaving like a goy, that is allowed, but not Yei Nesach. He does not pass on the halacha, the Yei Nesach is okay from Makor V'Malchus. The Makor V'Malchus should ask the king, Mayor told me, where are you? I don't have time for this story, but you tell the story later, because we're out of time. But basically, there was a story about a person who kept kashrus. I'm not going into the details. And Prince Charles, now King Charles, saw him, and actually he was very supportive of the fact that this Orthodox rabbi, Ki'ilu, made a fool of himself to dafka keep his plate, and the plate was kosher. Lo mishaneh. Bekitzer, maybe later Mayor will tell us the story if you want, In any event, one more thing, and here's getting more dangerous, and I'll finish with that. To shave with tar. To shave with a razor. Maybe the Rambam meant to shave with a tar, to shave mamish, shave with a razor. So the Misharis Moshe brought down Rav Ovadia says that he also talks about Yidden who are, I think, in Spain. He mentions the Spanish word, the señores, that they're allowed to shave their faces, but it doesn't say with tar. He also is more mekel like the Pachad Yitzchak, the Misharis Moshe is on his party. However, he only allows, clearly he says, to shave your facial hair, or even maybe here. That's a chiddush. The payas, you're allowed to shave them with what we call a non-kosher shaver, because it's a machlokes apoiskim. It's a big machlokes rishonim whether the isser to shave your sideburns is only with tar, the razor, the knife, the bad one. And some say that to shave with misparaim, with scissors that cut it very, very close, But when I say the shaver, I don't know la halacha l'maisa. Well, of course, it's not accepted. The Shulchan Aruch paskin don't do it, but there are many Rishonim who allow to shave your hair over here in a way that it's one less than a millimeter, very, very close to the skin, as long as it's not tar. Only then he allowed it to the Makor V'Malchus to look very good, and these people that their face looks like a mirror, they look in the mirror and the face looks like a very clean shaven. That is allowed because there are opinions who allow it, not stam, not because it's for sure an isser. That in that context it's allowed. So bad news or good news, whichever way you look at it, I do not think the Makor V'Malchus can, I don't know the context in that case that happened in that country, but let's say we're not in favor of people jumping into cars, into planes because of Makor V'Malchus, and maybe all be Makor V'Malchus like the Meir, Makor V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and see the real Geula coming soon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Which one of the four?